Oh, hey, welcome to the Bible for Not Dummies, because if you're interested in what the Bible's all about, then you, my friend, are not a dummy. What you may come to discover is that if you're not sure what to think about the Bible, but you're curious, it's probably God tugging at your heart, because the Bible tells us that God wants everyone to know truth and to know Him. So I'm glad you've joined me for this series of videos where we'll set out to answer the question, so what's the Bible all about anyway? And in this first video, we're just going to take a look at what makes up the Bible. So to start, the Bible is often referred to as the biblical canon. Whoa, not that kind of canon. Canon just means a collection of books or writings, and the Bible is made up of a very special collection of books and writings. I just want to mention that there are three primary branches of Christianity, and each has a slightly different canon. These are the Roman Catholic Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church, and the Protestant Church. Now, they're all similar in that they divide the Bible into two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament.
So what do you mean by Old Testament and New Testament?
Well, you can think of the word testament as a testimony. Like at a court trial, a witness takes the stand and their testimony provides information about events that took place. So the Old Testament is a collection of books that provide information about events that establish the relationship between God and man. Now, at a very important time in history, a monumentally significant event took place in the relationship between God and man, and the books of the Bible that come during and after the event are called the New Testament. We're going to talk about that change later in this series, but let's get back to the topic of the biblical canon. As I mentioned, the three primary branches of Christianity divide the Bible into two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. But each has a variation of what's included in the Old Testament. For example, the Protestant Old Testament has 39 books, while the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox Old Testaments have 46 and 49.
So why are they different?
Another good question. While I'm going to focus primarily on the Protestant canon for the rest of the series, let's just take a quick look at why these Old Testament canons are different. So, when the Protestant canon, or collections of books and writings, was being formed, there was a very strict criteria for what would be included and what wouldn't be included. We're going to explore that more in the next video, but in general, one of the criteria for determining what to include in the Protestant Bible was to only include books that directly carried God's story forward. For example, the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox Old Testaments contain the books of the Maccabees, while the Protestant Old Testament does not. While there's nothing wrong with these books, as they tell the story of a Jewish family of Rambo-like warriors that carried out guerrilla warfare against Seleucid occupiers, the books primarily are history in nature and don't advance God's story, and therefore they were not included in the Protestant Old Testament canon. Another reason for the difference in the number of books between the Protestant Old Testament canon and the others is due to the way some of the books were divided into multiple books, or in some cases, how they were combined into a single book. Now, when it comes to the New Testament, all three branches of Christianity have 27 books. So the Protestant canon is made up of a total of 66 books, 39 Old Testament books, and 27 New Testament books.
So what are the 66 books?
And yet again, another good question. Let's start with the Old Testament. In a later episode, we're going to dive into these books in more detail, but for now, we're just going to take a quick look at what the 66 books are. As mentioned earlier, the Protestant Old Testament canon is made up of 39 books. These books can be divided into 5 sections. The first section is made up of 5 books that are referred to as the Pentateuch or Torah. Pentateuch is simply the combination of 2 Greek words meaning 5 books. The Torah is a Hebrew word for teachings. These 5 books are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The second section of the Old Testament is made up of the historical books. And while this section is characterized as historical, these books provide us with important details about the relationship between God and man. And these books are Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. The third section of the Old Testament is made up of the poetry and wisdom books. These books are Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Songs. The fourth section of the Old Testament is made up of the books of the major prophets. Now, the prophets in a nutshell were specific people that would, among other things, convey messages to the people from God. These books are Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, or the book of Jeremiah's Laments, Ezekiel, and Daniel. These are known as the major prophets because their books are lengthier than the rest. And finally, the fifth section of the Old Testament is made up of the books of the minor prophets. Not because they're less important, but because their books are shorter than those of the major prophets. These books are Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Now, as we reach the end of the Old Testament, there's a 400-year gap in time before the events of the New Testament take place. This is known as the Intertestamental Period, and while there are no Old Testament books in the Protestant canon that cover this 400-year period of time, there are a lot of exciting historical events that took place, events that profoundly set the stage for the New Testament. I'm going to be exploring the Intertestamental Period on the Bible for Not Dummies in a future episode. Well, okay, so for now, let's fast forward 400 years and take a look at what makes up the 27 books of the New Testament. So when you open up a Bible to the New Testament, the first 4 books you'll find are known as the Gospels. Gospel is simply an Old English term for good news. So the first 4 books of the New Testament are called good news because they tell us about the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and how through him a new relationship between God and man has been made possible. These 4 Gospels are named after their writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Just after the Gospels is the book of Acts, also known as the Acts of the Apostles. The book chronicles the events that took place immediately after the resurrection of Jesus and how the gospel, or good news, began to spread throughout the known world by Jesus' disciples. Thus, the book's name, Acts of the Apostles. Now, there's a key figure in the book of Acts named Paul. This guy hunted and persecuted Jesus' followers, but part of the way through the book, Jesus gets hold of his heart and Paul's life would never be the same again. Paul went on to become a great figure of the Bible. He went on a number of missionary journeys, spreading the good news, establishing churches, writing. He did a lot of writing. One awesome thing Paul did during his journeys was to write letters to many of the churches he established on previous journeys, as well as to church leaders and associates he mentored along the way. And these letters became a significant portion of the New Testament. In fact, the 13 books following the book of Acts were all written by Paul. These are sometimes referred to as epistles, which is an old word for letters. The letters written by Paul are named after the church or person Paul was addressing the letter to, and you'll more commonly hear these letters referred to as books. These books are Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, and Philemon. The next book found in the New Testament is the book of Hebrews. This was a letter written to Jewish Christians, and while some scholars believe that Paul was the author, it's not known for certain. The next 7 books of the New Testament were named after the authors, and they are James, 1st and 2nd Peter, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, and Jude. And finally, the last book of the New Testament is the book of Revelation. This book, also written by John, who wrote the Gospel of John, as well as 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, tells how Jesus will conclude the current chapter of human history. It describes the events leading up to Jesus' second coming, the great battle that will take place between darkness and light, and ultimately how Jesus, the light of the world, will be victorious. And so there you have it, a brief overview of the books that make up the Bible. Yeah, I hope this was helpful for you, and I hope you'll join me for the next episode where we'll take a deeper look at how the Bible was assembled into the book we have today. Until next time, thanks for joining me on The Bible for Not Dummies.